They come from ERO, ICE, CBP to this facility with a face sheet that tells us everything about them. It's absolutely false.
Well, and you have all these, some of these complaints, like it's just the lengths that people are going to try to make an issue out of everything. There was one report, one of the illegals said that his ham sandwich was cold, and I'm thinking to myself, you're entitled to toasted hoagies? First of all, Jimmy John's is one of the most successful sandwich places in the country. They didn't have any toasted subs until very recently. They had only done cold subs, and it became a massive success, financial success. Now they do offer toasted subs. I don't think they do cheesesteaks. My kids like the cheesesteak from Jersey Mike's, but be that as it may, to say that the AC's on too much, it's too cold, or this or that. At some point it's like, good grief, just acknowledge the fact that what Kevin and these guys done has been a Herculean effort to get this up, that they are meeting or exceeding every state or federal standard, whichever is higher, and that this is in fact a force multiplier to be able to assist with the removal of illegal aliens from the country, and that's what it is. And so they've done a really good job on this. When I see this stuff I don't even have to ask him, because I know, I know that there's that you're not being told the whole story. And I think it's also interesting that there's folks in particularly corporate media. You'll have a criminal alien ordered to be deported, has committed criminal offenses in addition to immigration, and he will just assert something, and that will be reported as fact with no corroboration. It's interesting. You would never say if somebody that was on law enforcement just asserted. You would always ask questions, and you would do that. But somehow, with the criminal alien, you'll just accept that. And why? Because it fits the desired narrative. That's why people do it. I'll do both of you. You go first, and then you go. It will depend on the path of the storm. So Kevin has contingency plans. People are like, what happens if a hurricane hit? And I just think to myself, this ain't our first rodeo, okay? We know in Florida anything is susceptible to have to be evacuated. And there's some areas that may be a little bit more vulnerable, but there's not a single place in the state that you would be totally immune from having any impacts of hurricanes. But it also depends on the shape of the storm, the trajectory of the storm. So they have that built out. And, we do this in different contexts. We do it in the corrections context and have done it in the corrections context. We also have to redeploy first responders. So for Hurricane Milton, we were staged at Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Bay Rays. It's a convenient, very efficient place to do it. Well, Kevin's watching the storm. He's watching how it's coming, and he made the decision, we got to evacuate them out of there because we think it's going to be impacted by the storm. And of course it was. The roof got blown off, although the roof was supposed to withstand a little more than it did. So the roof got blown. So those guys were strategically redeployed, and then they got on target just like it was. So that will happen. There'll be accommodations that will be made that's accordingly. This stuff, though, can withstand non-major hurricane, Cat 1, Cat 2. Doesn't mean you can't have it. Now, the more interior you are, you guys who've covered hurricanes know when it hits land, it does slow down. So if we have a hurricane that hits Southwest Florida as a weak Cat 3, by the time it gets here, maybe those winds would be sub Cat 2. I mean, these are judgments that will be made accordingly, and there will be preparations made. And I'll just echo something Kevin said, because DEM is overseeing this, that must mean that they're not doing the standard preparations for hurricanes. That's obviously ridiculous. These, as you know, these are contracted folks. There are DEM personnel who are helping to coordinate, but we've got massive resources that are on standby in the event that we have additional major weather events. And I'm hoping that we don't. And I always tell people, we've had 6 majors in 7 years. We deserve a break remember, we had 10 years. We didn't have any recently. Wouldn't it be great to get another 10-year stretch? And I sincerely hope for that. But I do not expect that or plan for that. We have to plan as if we're going to have more events this year writ large, even apart from Alligator Alcatraz. But you know, if you had like a Hurricane Michael trajectory, you wouldn't need to evacuate anybody from here. If you had a Hurricane Irma trajectory, then you'd probably need to make some accommodations. And so these are things that these guys will watch. They have contingency plans. There's not one specific place where they will go to because you don't want to evacuate people into additional storm. Well, they have done that. When the President of the United States was here, we had the White House press pool that was following us through all these facilities. You know, you've had different politicians that have come. Now, a lot of them have been posturing, but they have come. Here's the thing. This is not a spectacle, okay? You don't get to go into other facilities willy-nilly either. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. I think they have a job to do here. I think they're doing it. And I think that they're doing it well. And so we're going to continue, and you know, Kevin's going to be able to make judgments about what's best for the mission, and I'm going to stand by his judgments on what's best for the mission. Okay, but I mean, respectfully, and where are you from? Okay. How many illegals have been apprehended by state law enforcement? Thousands and thousands. Do you honestly think we could underwrite a $30,000 check for each illegal that was apprehended with those massive numbers? Of course not. I mean, of course not. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. I can tell you that I worked very hard to get pay increases for Florida Highway Patrol in this year's budget. I wanted 25% for experience. We didn't get quite that much, but we did get a significant, and we'll probably work more. No, but I mean, the idea that you'd get 30,000 for every illegal, that wouldn't even be cost effective. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. Same as you would through any FEMA reimbursement. So there have been 100 full deportations just out of here. There have been many other hundreds who've been flown out of here. The way the federal government does is they have some areas that are considered kind of hubs. And so I know some flights have gone to Louisiana, and then they will go from Louisiana. And it makes sense logistically because, you know, if we've got a plane full of people here from a variety of nationalities, if you go to a central hub, then you can pool the nationalities and send one flight to one place, another flight to another place. So that's what we're doing. But there have been 100 folks that have fully been deported, and there have been many hundred that have been exited this facility and are en route to be deported by the federal government. And look, I think a lot of people getting them out of Florida is a huge thing. You know, it's like we obviously had a transport program, send to California, send to New York, send to Martha's Vineyard even, and we were happy to do that because I think it relieved burdens on Florida. But yeah, so they've got a process that they're doing. Now DHS has run into some more money now. I think you're going to see an expanded footprint in their capacity. I think you're going to see an expanded detention footprint in their capacity. And I'm all about, I mean, people say like, you know, why are you getting involved? Because we need it. That's why I'm getting involved. If DHS had 100% capacity to handle and process 100% of the illegals, then I'd be happy to just say, you know what, you know, we've got other things to be doing. But we're needed in this fight now. Other states have been asked to step up. I hope they do. And I think you're going to see DHS's capacity continue to increase. But right now, you know, they've you know, they had 4 really tough years in terms of the attention and the direction. And so it's a new day, but it takes some time. Well, one, I mean, I don't have bug spray on. I know people habit or what. But so on the deportation, look, that's a question for DHS. As I said, they've got processes that they go through. They can do a direct deportation from here. They can do to one of the hubs, and then the hub can take them. And I know that they have used El Salvador. I don't know that anyone from here has gone there yet, but so I just can't answer that. But I think DHS could answer that. Okay, who has a question? Who hasn't asked one? Yes, ma'am. None, because we've looked at it. It doesn't have an impact. As Kevin said, there were hundreds of flights going in here, training flights. There are less flights now doing that. Everything that you see built is on the existing infrastructure, so it's not going to have an impact. And I would note, particularly for people in your region, I just did something no one thought could get done as quickly as we did. Open the C-43 reservoir. And so you remember, before I became governor back in 2018, there was a lot of water being spewed out of Lake Okeechobee. It interacted with the red tide. It created some real serious problems for quality of life, tourism, and the economy. And now we've got a massive reservoir that can store that water, clean it. It can send to Southwest Florida in the dry season when they want it. And that is a huge, huge thing. So the number one environmental issue that was present in 2018, this stuff being spewed in from the lake, we addressed it head on and have completed this massive infrastructure project. And if you also look at the hydrology of the Everglades, what I said was, we got to have water flow south as nature and God intended. And the amount of water flowing south compared to when I became governor, dramatic increase. This thing, I looked into, should we buy it and then grow over it? Would that? But it doesn't really do a lot to increase the hydrology. That money could be spent much better doing the stuff that we're doing. So there's not going to be an impact here. But even if this wasn't here, if I had to pay money to mothball it, I think that money would probably be better off doing the pump stations like we're doing at the EAA reservoir that the Army Corps has given us responsibility over. So that's going to be bid on and procured. We're going to move forward with that. So all those things I think are very important. But this has been huge success that we have had with Everglades restoration. We're continuing the momentum. This delegation of authority that we announced down in Marco Island last week, huge deal for the state of Florida. They were looking at the federal share being done 2034. Now it's going to be done 5 years earlier because the state is being given resources to be able to go forward and do this. And so it's been a huge cornerstone of what we've done. The progress is undeniable. This is not, anything that's impacting. In fact, there are less flights as a result of what we're doing than there were before that. Okay, they truck it out. Yeah. There's no sewer or any. They just truck the waste out. They bring in potable water and they do it. So, look, that's more expensive to do. That's more cumbersome. But we weren't willing to do this facility if we weren't managing that in a way that was not going to have impacts. And so that's what we're trying to do. So they're running these things out of here all the time. And I think they've done a really good job doing it. And they're basically, this existing concrete is what they're using. I mean, you look, there's grass in the interior here. Honestly, there'd be no reason that you couldn't use that's not going to affect the Everglades. But they're not even using that. They're literally just staying on the concrete. So it's been a really incredible footprint that they've been able to do with this. Yeah. So the self-deportations is, obviously the feds are doing it. We're willing to do it as part of this FEMA reimbursement as well from here. Now that's got to be supervised because some of these people, we're not just going to hey, take a ticket. See, no, they're going to be escorted. They're going to do that. But when and so we've done. How many have we done? We've done it not from here necessarily, but statewide. We've done it. 20-something. Yeah. We've done 24 self-deportations that have been funded. But any self-deportation out of here, if we pay for the ticket, that is subject to FEMA reimbursement, we believe. So we're happy to do that. I think it saves money. Honestly, it saves the state money because there's a lot of burdens that get placed, when you have this many folks doing it. So we'll keep providing updates on this. I think you're going to see the cadence on these flights start to pick up. Obviously, honestly, to get to where we were at the beginning of this month and now have flights leaving already with a facility that's been built out, that's incredible. It's incredible work by Kevin Guthrie, incredible cooperation with DHS and the Trump administration. A lot of hard work has gone into it. So thanks for everybody that's been involved in this. This is making a difference. This is just the opening stage. You're going to see this really ramp up, especially given DHS's infusion of cash, and particularly all those illegals that are already been ordered to be removed. We need to get that done. I mean, the rule of law really depends on it, and the vitality and safety of our communities depend on it. Okay, thank you.
Where are we headed?